One Piece is praised for many things, yet one factor of it in particular is by far the most praised aspect of the show, and that of course is the existence of Tony Chopper. But the world building is also alright I guess, so let's just talk about that. Before we can talk about the world building though, we need to talk about the world, which is part of world building. I don't know why I phrased it like that. The way Oda has set up the One Piece world has allowed him to go absolutely ham on world building. The fact that we're constantly switching islands throughout the Grand Line means that each island can offer something unique. This is further enhanced by the fact that he already set up a way for him to drastically change the geographies of each island. Way back at the introduction of the Grand Line, he already established that the weather conditions between islands change like Ace's bodily organ count. So, pretty drastically. One of the reasons his world building is so notable is because it's never stale. Islands aren't repeats of each other because there's literally an endless possibility for what each island can look like. I mean, the only way I think Oda can make two islands look similar is if he gets some form of memory loss and forgets that he even created an island. Islands can go from Islands can go from Antarctica to the Sahara, and even from Atlantis to Australia. We constantly get a breath of fresh air, which allows Oda to tackle stories he's wanted to tackle for a long time. I mean, in what other world can you go from feudal Japan to an island that looks straight out of, well, present-day Japan? I don't know. And while most of the story is focused on the Grand Line and the islands within, Oda has also managed to create so much geography outside of it. The Four Seas, the Calm Belt, the Red Line, all of it are great examples of geographical locations Oda has made outside of the Grand Line that all somehow tie into the Grand Line. For example, the Calm Belt is a great way for Oda to explain why getting into the Grand Line is neon impossible for pirates, and why the Reverse Mountain is a thing, which, by the way, is another geographical location that I think is great. While every location is unique in terms of its geography and appearance, they also all offer something new and something that's unique to the island. Like real life, each island has its own culture, utensils, and even way of fighting. For example, in Drum Island, their way of fighting was to not do that. Why did I pick Drum Island as an example? Skypiea. Skypiea is one of the best examples of world building by Oda, and it has so many unique things going on in it. They have radically different way of living, and they even use many different things like dials, wave riders, and even bazookas, really letting out their inner American there. This even extends to their culture, as the people of Skypiea worship and live radically differently to people from any other island. Also, they even use different money. The currency between the Blue Sea and the Sky Ocean are even different, which shows you just how meticulously Oda crafts each and every one of these islands. And while this may seem like it only applies to big islands, it applies to those we really didn't spend much time in. For example, and I hate using this as an example, Long Ring Longland. Long Ring Longland was the only place we've ever seen with that many long things. I mean, even Marineford only had one long schlong, I'm sorry. But for real, an arc that may seem completely out of place and appear more filler than it does canon also has its upsides. Its location is unique, and the idea that everything there is extremely long is an idea that's never used again. It's unique to this one island, even though this one island really doesn't have that much of an impact. The fact that Oda can give even the most bland of islands a new unique factor that makes it memorable is great in almost all scenarios. Except for this one, because I do not want to remember Foxy, someone send help. Oda gives each island and its people a different way of living. He gives them different cultures, different histories, different struggles, and even different ways of solving those struggles. For example, in Water 7, we saw how the people of the island lived in fear as their island was constantly sinking and hurricane would often destroy their entire town. To combat this, they constantly built more and more houses in order to prevent, well, them dying, I don't know. They have unique supplies and even modes of transportation that are never seen again. This even extends to their main source of income. Each island has a unique source of income. In Water 7, it was shipbuilding. In Punk Hazard, it was weapons. And in Wano, it was... Actually, how the hell did they make money there? What I'm trying to say is the insane amount of attention to details Oda has when it comes to creating new civilizations makes his world building so goddamn good, because he spends so long making sure all the people and all the islands are unique. But also, things are more connected than they may seem. Another factor that makes the world building of One Piece so special is that all the locations connect to one another. Part of the reason the Grand Line is so appealing is that all islands build off of each other. For example, the Yonko Saga. The Yonko Saga is a great example of all the islands of One Piece connecting with each other. Fishman Island and Whole Cake Island were connected through the candy tax, and the remaining islands of the Yonko Saga were connected through the smiled fruits and weapon deals. All the locations in One Piece are somehow related to one another. All the islands are connected through the Reverie, and all the islands we visit in sagas almost always connect to one another. The reason islands being always connected is so important is that we never truly forget about these islands. They always come back and manage to stay relevant to the story. For this, we go all the way back to Alabasta, an arc that took place almost 20 years ago. Alabasta still stays relevant today through a singular aspect, the poneglyph. It managed to stay relevant even during the most recent arc Wano, purely because of a single poneglyph. Through the poneglyphs, the entire world of One Piece is connected, as they all have relations to the ancient kingdom. Furthermore, this helps immerse the audience in the world of One Piece. Because the islands all connect to one another, we never feel like we're traveling from island to island with the sole purpose of making the show longer. It feels like we're always working towards something, and seeing how all of the islands connect is part of what makes this world building so godly. Another factor of what makes the world building of One Piece so goddamn good is the history. Oda spends so much time fleshing out the history of each island. Each island has an in-depth history that can be found somewhere throughout the island, and the fact that this happens for almost every single island is mind-blowing. To see Oda manage to incorporate so much history into his arcs also helps immerse the audience, because it never feels like the only purpose of this world is to be the place where Luffy lives. Rather, it feels like the world that has existed for centuries before Luffy, and Luffy is just a very ambitious kid traveling through this world. Another factor that makes the world building so good is politics. Americans, please don't leave, I'm sorry. Making politics interesting is a very hard thing to achieve, and I think the only remotely interesting thing I know about the political sphere is that a fight almost broke out during the House of Congress? House of Congress? House of I'm gonna fail my AP Gov exam. While very important, politics are pretty boring, which is the only thing it has in common with My Hero Academia. However, One Piece manages to make politics somehow interesting. Seeing how the islands interact through the reverie and seeing how all the islands have a political struggle and want to get their point across during the reverie is so interesting to me. And while politics on the One Piece world also take place on a worldwide level, it also happens within islands. A lot of the islands within the Grand Line have a political struggle, whether it be a tyrant or just a group of rebels. Seeing how all the politics play out in the world is honestly one of the most interesting aspects of the show to me, which is funny because, well, American politics just make me want to cry more than I do when Foxy shows up. It's just so boring, it takes forever, and why is American politics so long? Just like Whitebeard's cock. I'm sorry, I can't hold it back anymore. Been a minute. Another noteworthy thing about Oda's world building is the fact that there's so much going on. The Straw Hats are just one group traveling the world, but at any time, there's like 5 other groups doing shit as well. Whether it's in the background or it's blatantly shown, we always know there's other people in this world. The world of One Piece isn't centered around the Straw Hats, rather they're just a group of people traveling the world. This really makes the world of One Piece special, as in most other shows, the world exists purely for the main cast, but in One Piece, the main cast is just one of the millions of groups of people. And finally, the last reason the world building of One Piece is so good is because of the people around the world and how they interact. Seeing how Oda takes time to flesh out how each race of people interacts with one another is so cool to me. For example, and this is the most clear example to see, fishmen and normal people. Fishmen are typically hunted and killed by humans, leading them to go underwater and live in Fishman Island to be safe. Seeing how Oda takes into factors such as racism when writing a group of people is phenomenal, but this also extends to other factors other than just racism. This also extends to people of the same species, for example. Celestial Dragon and normal people interact extremely differently. Celestial Dragons have a lot more power and they're treated like gods, whereas normal people are, well, they're treated like shit in front of a Celestial Dragon. This is a pure example of classism, I think is the term, correct me if I'm wrong. There are hierarchies to society in the One Piece world with Emu at the top, which honestly makes the world building that much cooler because the same hierarchies exist in real life. The President of the United States and me are treated very differently, for example. There's a lot more respect for one person than there is the other. Sorry Joe, I'm just better like that. Continuing on though, I also love how Oda adds new interesting things to different species. All the species don't just look different, they act and speak differently. Celestial Dragons, yes, I consider them their own species. Look at this dude, I don't want to be associated with this guy. Speak very slowly due to all the inbreeding, while the little guys from the Tontata Kingdom add a land to everything they say. While there isn't more than one language in this show, seeing how Oda still makes every race different through their way of speaking is just, I mean, how detailed is this man? So in conclusion, One Piece and world building are two words that belong together, just like me and Zoro. I don't know what that conclusion is. Overall though, that's it for me. Thank you.